Hey, second. Good evening, everybody. Yes. Ah, it's lovely to see you. You dared to come. Well, we're going to to explore again, and in a different way, maybe we see how it goes. This theme of the non-dual child, the quality of the child. So the non-dual child in us greets the non-dual child in you. So where do we begin? Maybe in that basic, incredibly arrogant adult sense of superiority to the child. That placing of the child outside of what is a fully grown, fully formed human. I remember hearing someone say that a baby until it's 4 years old is like a monkey. They're not remembering anything, they're not feeling anything, they're just like an animal. Which from one perspective is a very high compliment. But is that when it comes from a place of there's no point relating, there's nothing of interest there, that it's not going to remember anything anyway, that you see this structure of the narcissistic adult. You also see how adults are taught to relate to their own primal experience, to the first impressions they had of what it means to be alive, the first impressions they have of seeing for the first time their mother's face on the outside, looking in, feeling for the first time the touch of the father on the skin, experiencing for the first time what it is to sit among a whole load of other children in a class, to see the sunlight, to feel this incredible, at first, to feel this incredible blended experience of the inside of the body and the motoric ability of the different parts of the body, how it feels to be physically alive, and what this body can perceive in the outer environment. And there's the very slow movement which is there. Meaning there is a period of time alive in all of us where we received impressions directly, unfiltered, and we had all the time and space to experience them without cutting it into this, that, or the other, without division, without selection, without preference, without judgment. And this is what we're talking about is a pre-verbal time. So if we're not yet speaking with words, we're also not yet thinking with words. So what would that be? A thought without words? Because that's beneath every formulation of a thought in whatever language we speak. It's a resonance. It's experiential. It's a movement of energy, but it is a communication or a response. So all of this we knew to do very, very well when we were little. We were unflustered, unbothered. We weren't sitting there analyzing, is this me or is this my mother? Which is which? Is this hunger in me or is this hunger in the other kid? It was just a direct experience. There's no need to interfere, to censor, to compose. It's the beginning, the openness, the genesis, without filter, of how it can be to be physically alive, to experience physical aliveness. Now, this is incredibly attractive to us as adults, to wonder at the wonder of a baby. It can be so amazing that it can be overwhelming to the point that we close down our perception, we move into fear. We want to educate them very quickly because it feels dangerous. Because if they get to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're still like that, what are their survival chances? We think. How will they get good grades at school? Because, while the teacher's trying to teach them something on the blackboard or whiteboard or whatever, they are pondering the gap between their teeth with their tongue and the experience of having a mouth. And maybe here or there, they might look at whatever the teacher is doing on the blackboard. And maybe their attention gets distracted, as it often does when you're a child, to the teacher's buttocks, because, you get a lot of that, bum sizes of teachers with their backs turned as they're doing something on a blackboard. And they start to ponder that, but they're not learning their, 1, 2, 3 and their ABC at that moment. It's like, whoa, does the teacher have a bum too? And this is dangerous because they're not going to get good grades. They're not going to get good grades. They're not going to succeed. It goes very fast. You see people getting their kids out of the car with a great big school bag full of books at age 6. Off you go, succeed. And the kid is like, like obelisk, overpowered with the weight of it, going to God knows where, knowing they have to succeed, but not sure of what. All they know really maybe is the experience of heavy. So we work very, very hard to dumb our children down. They're born as kind of natural geniuses, alive in the field of experiencing, wanting to communicate, not just through words, but through feeling, through experience, coming from a dimension where it's utterly, that's how you do it. You merge with each other and you learn each other through sharing experience by merging, and then you separate and you take a little bit of the information from the other away with you. You're drawn towards something which is beautiful in the formless dimension, and your whole being expresses beauty and invites beauty. And there's a little celebration that happens. And none of it is binding or committing or enslaving. So it seems that the non-dual child consciousness, alive in immediately direct, unfiltered experience, has the possibility of every single quality showing up spontaneously, instantaneously, naturally at any moment. And also every instinctive emotion, not randomly, but maybe playfully or according to need, in a particular unique way. Unfiltered, nevertheless. You look at a litter of kittens. There's always one kitten which is the screamer, which is meow, 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 demanding everything. And that's his character. This is something of the miracle of uniqueness showing up before filtering, before education, before anything else. There is something so raw, so alive. Then there's the other one that goes me, me, me. The softer one, maybe the gentler one. Just as precious, but with a different way of moving with need. Which one would make the best mother or the best father as a cat? So as we are born into this physical dimension, we enter a field of duality. And the most beautiful thing is we enter through a field of the merging of duality, male and female polarity, of two, mother, father, in whatever form. And we emerge as one. So the non-dual child is the product of a reunion where what was split into male and female merges. Somewhere there's a oneness, somewhere where there's a blend, a window opens. And through that window comes the third point, the child. Now, the child is an expression of that blend in which mother is father and father is mother and mother is mother and father is father and the mother's relating to the mother and the father's relating to the father and the mother and everything swirling around in one field of pure quality. And in that field of pure quality, you can't really then, 2 years after the baby's born, say, okay, this bit's the father, and this bit's the mother, and this bit's from here, and this bit's from there, and to try and divide the child again into duality. The very movement of creation is coming out of a blend, and this is like every moment of consciousness. But that's what we do. Because maybe just as the mother might love her partner and the father might love her partner, whatever, sometimes they don't like them so much. Sometimes there's a unity whiplash. Sometimes it feels like the baby is a little bit of an alien because it comes from the other one. Or maybe it's intruding on the relationship of the parents. And so somewhere along the line, this baby, which is moving with pure innocence, not even moving with it, the baby that is pure innocence, like we are, even now. Or the baby which is a pure expression of love, like we are, even now, whatever we think about it. Or the baby which is an instant reverberation of peace, like we are, whatever we think about it. At a certain stage, the baby tries to translate this into action because it's being celebrated, it feels to be invited, and it tries to move in naturalness towards one of the parents or towards a sibling, and it gets a rejection, or it gets pushed back, or it gets a shock of some kind, which causes it to learn that you have to be a little bit careful here with being yourself. That at least outwardly, it's not always wise, smart, good for survival to just throw yourself into the lap of your mother, especially not if at that moment she's making coffee. And the mind is quick to pick this up because behind all of this, the baby wants to please, like every animal wants to please, like every organism wants to move towards well-being. But now there's a kind of a caveat on true nature, a caveat on the natural purity of being, the playfulness, the happiness. You know, when your uncle comes over, you can play with him and you can play all kinds of monkey business with him. And it's fun and you're laughing and it's joyful and it's delightful. But then at a certain moment, mother and big brother are saying, whoa, 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 it's going to end in tears. Don't get too excited. Don't get too carried away. This will end bad. So it's not allowed to be totally blissful, only a little bit for a little while, and then calm, 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 calm. Stop it. You can love your mother, but you can't totally and absolutely unconditionally love your mother because, you get to school and you say, my mummy this, my mummy that, my mummy the other. At a certain moment, they're looking at you like they're really going to bully you. So you have to hold it back. You can want to do well, but if you really, really, really want to do well, you might not fit in with your friends anymore. So maybe you should do less well. Or maybe you're really beautiful, really pretty. And for some reason, other people in the class are starting to hate you. So better not. Better dumb that down. So at a certain moment, what happens is we form beliefs and we say, okay, what matters really here is succeeding, success out there in the world. So that means that, I'm a bit stupid. I'm a fool to think that I can bring this love, which maybe I only made it up anyway, this childish love into the world, or this childish playfulness. It's not a playful world. The world is deadly serious. People die here. They suffer. They lose money. They can't get the next fancy car. Can't just be playful. And so we begin to scorn the qualities of which we're made. And that even comes to consciousness itself, the consciousness out of which the quality is coming. So the child is in the here and now. The baby is in the here and now. And there's enormous pressure on him or her to learn stuff by rote, to learn the A, B, C, D, to learn to write, to learn big words, to know stuff, for which they need to go back into the past and use again and again this kind of parrot memory to bring back something. Actually, parrots are more spontaneous, but the principle of mimicry, with enormous reward given to that, and experiencing stuff, well, we can't judge that. We can't measure it. We can't make you more or less. We can't quantify your experience. We can't even qualify it. Don't relate to it. In fact, as adults, we don't have much experience ourselves, so probably the kid is a fantasist, a daydreamer. So quite soon it feels like certain qualities cannot be here. And not only that, certain qualities, they're making trouble. You got to be smart. You got to be smarter than the bully in the class. You should care, but you shouldn't care too much, because if you care too much, it will kill you when your parents are killing each other. At the same time that this is what the child is made of. It's what we're all made of. So what do? Partly, we dissociate. We just say, okay, I cannot be here, so I will find a place where I can be. Meaning where these qualities can be. We start to daydream. We sit there, we fantasize, a place where there is love and we can feel that power of love and that heroism. We can save everybody. Where we meet this character which is able to touch and do miracles, just like that, magical beings. We dissociate so that we can re-access part of ourselves. We disconnect in order to reconnect. But from the outside, from the adult point of view, the child is not with us. Where is the child? Where have they gone? Yalla, come back, come back. Concentrate, focus. Stop daydreaming, stop making things up. You're living in another world. And this world is not real. So the whole of true nature, the whole vibration of love, peace, freedom, bliss, not real. The resource that the child ingenious found is not real. Mathematics is real. Homework is real. Especially if you don't do it. Otherwise, so there's this amazing thing about true nature as experienced by the child in those first weeks, months, years. is that even though we might really, really want to forget it, it doesn't forget us because we are that. We can't get rid of it. So we begin to seek. We seeked with daydreaming, but that was made bad and that made us bad. So we split from that, but we'd still do it secretly. We split from our core. And we split from the inner child to the extent that we look back and we talk about ourselves as a child as if it's a stranger, as if we're studying something in a history book. And often the stories we tell about what happened, not we, but I mean the big human we, the stories that we tell about what happened to us as a child are stories we heard from our mother and our father. Things we learned because we learned how to learn stuff as opposed to honor and describe what's being experienced. The narratives about somebody else who's long gone, something which is kind of attached here, but isn't us. We're not in it. And then when we begin a certain moment, because it's unsustainable, this situation, we go into some kind of crisis, or crisis happens and brings us into breakage, blessed breakage, and everything seems to fall apart. And then what begins to come forward? Partly something of the authentic communication, the authentic primal distress of that child, wanting to, if it had a life of its own, it would be wanting to fuse with us, to blend with us, to be recognized that it is us. And if we had a life of our own, it would be our longing to reunite with that core experience, but maybe not yet realizing that the child is the Buddha that we're trying to become. The child is behind us, is the one that we're striving to become by coming to workshops, by working on ourselves, by trying to be good enough, by trying to access true nature, and forgetting all the time that we always have been that. And one of the best places to look is in those early unfiltered experiences. And it sounds crazy, but how crazy is it to second guess the love that you feel? To believe that we don't belong? To think that we have to fight very, very hard and work very, very hard all day long, all week long, just to have a moment of peace. That happiness is for the afterlife. All these beliefs. So how do we find the inner child? How do we access the non-dual child? Well, there are schools which say, okay, you go there by looking at the pathology, because every inner child is wounded, and if you can get to that primal scream, that wound of the child, and you go there and you scream a lot and you cry a lot and you grieve a lot and you go there as an adult and say, there, whatever you need. Take the child, put it in a room where it gets everything that it needs, that will fix it. But it doesn't. It can bring some insights, it brings some space for childhood, but it doesn't really make it good. Partly because we're still coming from that Stockholm syndrome of adulthood, where we're saying, okay, there's something wrong with a child. There's something undeveloped, there's something wounded, there's something hurt, there's something vulnerable. It's not safe to be open and free. It's not safe to be me. We're still pathologizing. It doesn't work because we're looking, the gaze towards the inner child is a gaze which is communicating insufficiency, incompetence, lack of function, victimhood, helplessness, and not in a good way. When we look through that prism at our own childhood, at our own childhood experience, of course, that's what we find. Misery. When we look towards our mother and father, and okay, it's all because of them. And then maybe we start decide, remember, we have to be compassionate, and we say, okay, Back in the day, it was hard to be a mother. They didn't have washing machines. And back in the day, fatherhood was a whole different thing. So, and they also had abuse when they were babies. So we forgive them. But we don't. We can't. Because the impressions are still alive inside of us, and we're not able to get past this particular relationship with suffering, where the suffering on true nature is more important than true nature itself. Where the suffering of the child, of the consciousness of the child, is given a higher weight, a higher value than the miraculous conscious, living consciousness of the child. You see, they feel the attitude shift. What's more important? The suffering, as if it exists alone, or the consciousness in which allows the suffering to be there as an experience which comes and goes. So there's plenty of consciousness in a child, and now and again there's a moment of suffering. There's an immense amount of joy and well-being in a child. And now and again there's moments of distress. In fact, you could say the suffering, especially the emotional suffering, is so unusual that it becomes exceptional. That's partly why we grab hold of it. It's the one black pod in the 1,000 white pods. So, that one. But if we really want to reclaim our essence, our ancient true nature, our timeless aspects of the really what we are all the time, we have to get over this compulsion towards suffering. Not in a way that we reject it or repress it or deny it or dishonor it, but in a way that we relate to what is suffering. What is the one that's suffering? Which aspect is suffering? So we find a wounded aspect, let's say, a place where we were hurt in childhood, where we felt very unwelcome, like we weren't allowed to be here. So what felt unwelcome? What felt that it couldn't be here? Which aspect of our soul or of our core, of our true nature, was frustrated, cried out in pain in that moment, went into hiding at that moment? Because here we begin to move into the quality, we begin to move into the love, which maybe sometimes suffered rejection, disappointment, dissonance, coldness. Begin to move into the incredible, refined, universal care showing up through physical form. You see it in how a baby even touches his lips, which maybe sometimes feels unwelcome or invisible in the dissonance of this world. You find it in the core of well-being, where everything's really okay. It's always okay. And the baby comes with a big smile, knows everything's really okay, like a little Buddha. What is all the fuss about? Even though sometimes within that field of utter okayness, there is also moments where there is the vibration of wrongness, dissonance. Doesn't cancel out the okayness of the soul. So above all is to come back to that place where consciousness is free of being held captive by language, by thought, by ideas, by certain areas of the brain alone, not the whole skin surface, not the whole field of experience of whatever impressions are happening, where consciousness can be free to move and to thrive, to pick up and to put down, according to the delight in experiencing anything at all. So where is consciousness? Where do we find our consciousness? The doorway is always in the here and now. It's right here, right now, in this body, not in another one, not in another place. Not now that we're grown up, before we go down again. It's always in this magical here and now. So through this here and now, we're already beginning to move towards the non-dual child because we're coming back to beginner's mind. And in the here and now, there is much more unconditional opening possible to whatever impressions or expressions are moving through the field of experience, inside or outside, it doesn't matter which. Through the here and now, if we just contemplate the body as it stands or as it sits, this body isn't different from the body of that child. These are the hands of that child. This is the jaw of that child. These are the lips of that child. You are that child. You didn't leave a body and become another adult body. This is you. It's always been you. It's always been here at the core of experience, where consciousness was free, where the heart was free, where the body was free to taste and savor and experience the world. It's the same one, and it's an incredible resource, not wounded at all, but a perennial, constant, infinite resource of consciousness itself from before there even was a baby body. And that's where really the child becomes a non-dual quality, showing us the fusion between subject and object in every moment of experience. Every meeting with another, a child is born in the blend between the two. And it's really for us to keep that connection with the essence of all that we are. And in that we enter another dimension which is so old, so wise, so sober, so incredibly caring, so alive with what's needed, moving by itself, where age in a way disappears and another kind of freedom comes forward. Okay, we leave it like that. We take 5 minutes break and then we will regress into a non-dual child meditation.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. It's so good to see you all. Let's move into the guided meditation. If you all could find a relaxed position. And finding a relaxed position, I'd like you to connect with where your body is supported by the chair, the couch, the floor, and connecting with that support. I like you to allow yourself to relax even a little bit more deeply into this support. And then I'd like you to connect with your breathing. And just follow your breathing in and out. And with every out breath, you allow yourself to sink a little bit more deeply into the support of the chair, the couch, the mattress, the floor. And then I like you to regress back to a moment of happiness in your childhood. We are regressing back to a moment of happiness in our childhood. And when you found this moment of happiness, so can you connect with the atmosphere around you? What is the atmosphere around you? And is your mother involved? Can you place your mother somewhere in this moment of happiness? Maybe further away, maybe closely. And what is the atmosphere between you and your mother? And how is your father involved? Is he nearby or is he far away? Is he present or is he not present? And what is the atmosphere between you and your father? Then I would like you to let go of that and just move back to your breathing and follow your breathing in and out. And with every out breath, you feel that you can relax even more deeply into the support of this chair, the couch, the mattress, the floor. And then I like you to regress back in your childhood and connect with the moment that you felt lonely. A moment that you felt lonely in your childhood. Where is your father in this loneliness? Is he far away or nearby? And what is the atmosphere between you and your father? And then I like you to focus on your mother. In this moment of loneliness, where is your mother? Is she close or is she far away? Is she there or not there? And what is the atmosphere between you and your mother? Like you to let go of this again. And if you could connect with your breathing, just following your breathing in and out. And with every out breath, you allow yourself to sink even deeper into the support of the chair, the couch, the mattress, the floor. And then I'd like you to imagine that your mother is standing in front of you at your left side. Your mother is standing in front of you at your left side. And what is the atmosphere between you and your mother right now? And then I'd like you to imagine that your father is standing in front of you at your right side. And what is the atmosphere between you and your father right now? And I'd like you to connect with the atmosphere between your father and your mother. What is the atmosphere between both parents? And they're standing in front of you right now. And if you imagine that your parents are looking at each other from some distance in front of you, what is the atmosphere between them? And then I like you to find a comfortable position in relation to both your parents, maybe in between, maybe from some distance, maybe very close, maybe far away. A position where you feel comfortable in relationship with both parents. And they're looking at each other, and you are aware of the atmosphere between them. And when you found a comfortable position, what is the atmosphere between the three of you? When you found a comfortable position, what is the atmosphere between the three of you? And then I'd like you to let go of this and connect with your breathing. And follow your breathing in and out. And with every out breath, you allow yourself to sink a little bit deeper into the chair and the support of the couch, the mattress, the floor. And then I'd like you to regress back in your childhood to this moment or a moment of happiness. Maybe to a moment where you felt loved. Okay, it's time to say goodbye to the people on the live stream, and thank you for being with us, and we hope to feel you next week again. And we are taking a 5-minute break, and after 5 minutes there will be some time for questions and sharing, and of course the peace meditation. And see you in 5 minutes.